Hi, I'm Gianluca Fiorelli and welcome back to the third session. Today we are going to have one of the smartest, wittiest technical SEO our industry has. She is very well known in the industry and she's really great. I really like her because she really insightful. She knows what she knows and expresses it really well. She is a wonderful curator. She is a nerd like me. You hear her. Her name is Jamie Indigo. How are you doing? It's a long
I'm doing
time.
great. How are you? It's so
I'm
lovely to see
fine. I'm
you
fine.
again.
I'm preparing myself for Christmas. And I mean, I think we really need this kind of celebration to put a stop and, you know, the good proposition that we will never follow after 2 weeks and so on. But I love it. So I'm fine. I'm fine. And what about you?
I love the celebrations of community and being together with your people. It's been a big focus for me this year. I'm excited to share more winter celebrations with my loved ones. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, what I forgot to tell before is that Jamie is now working as senior technical SEO at Cox Auto.
Director of technical SEO.
Oh, no. Yes, director. Director of technical SEO at Cox Automotive Inc., which is compliments. It's a really nice role. I think that really fits you.
When you love billions of pages, this is where you go.
Yeah, yes. Why? Why not? I mean, why 100? Let's give me millions.
I
But
miss the
yes,
days of like 70,000 products and that challenge. Being like, oh, this is exhilarating.
no, not just products. Give me all the facets, all the variation.
People
So,
shop for cars in a lot of ways. It is wild.
oh yes, because I remember when Fiat many years ago launched the new 500, they did something which was surely a nightmare for an SEO because the 500 was sold with a basic version and then the customer could design it with all the options as they wanted. Imagine for an SEO, all the facets possible. What, what kind of
What
matter
user
could it be?
path do you use to get to every config? How do
Yes.
you make that? What's useful in crawling? Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So let's talk about SEO. Let me
Yep.
ask you the classic question that I ask to all the guests. How SEO is treating you lately?
In the words of a very wise dungeon crawler, you will not break me.
That's a good answer. And talking about SEO, obviously, it's somehow a feel rouge of all the episode is the impact of AI. And what has been the impact of AI in your work especially in the framework of a technical SEO?
Oh, luckily it just means job security because bots still need to crawl. They can't surface content they can't find. So that part remains the same. There's the other end of it where we have all of these revolutionary new technologies that can't render JavaScript and have other very fun nuances to them and almost no technical documentation. So there's the angle of going, well, how does this work in X, Y, and Z circumstance? Because well, it's probabilistic ranking. Things have a tendency to exist. What can we measure? What can we observe? This is how we have to move forward with it. And I think it really involves a lot of collaborative work from different nerds down very deep holes, figuring out what they're seeing and sharing it because, the way out is through and the way through is together. So it's a great time to be a technical SEO. It's also a deeply frustrating time to be a technical SEO.
Yes. It can be both at the same time. It's
Traffic is hemorrhaging out, but this is really neat over here.
yeah, yeah. And you were saying it's because there is somehow this sort of let's call it a romantic, even if I don't think it's so romantic. A
It's
representation of
framed.
no, but this let's call it no romantic idea of especially of a technical SEO, like that sort of person which is not really a developer, but not really a marketer, and or doesn't really work on content, which, the SEO specialized on the vertical of content usually are maybe the one that can be more understood by stakeholders, by all the other people in the company, for instance. But the technical SEO is something like, yes, a nerd, but how much this nerd is becoming someone that the companies are understanding finally, maybe because of this impact of AI, that that guy in that part of the office maybe is important and we should pay more attention that we have ever thought.
Yeah, it actually really turns out to be that. So you're in a new place, AI has taken over, no one's really sure what is happening or how to talk about things. So words are being used interchangeably, incorrectly, and insanely. And we have our tech SEOs over in the corner going, hey, wait, so the mechanics of this still have to work like XYZ. No code is magic. Let's take a step back. And before we begin an optimization strategy, let's figure out how it works. So it's been a really interesting place to be. I've, changed the scale of my conversations internally from being to my direct developer pods to higher strategic initiatives. So if this is coming, if this is where the hype is going, Cox is all in. They are one of the heaviest AI adopters out there. It's throughout the business in different ways. So getting to be part of that and to help, it's like a JavaScript framework. There's nothing inherently evil about it. It depends on the execution and knowing what good means. So getting to be part of that has been, I don't know, I feel like one of the most rewarding challenges I've had in my career in a long time. I got a little bit tired just talking about, web rendering services and how performance mattered to humans. Now it's a whole time is a flat circle trip back to when I first started in tech SEO, when we didn't really have the robust documentation that we do now, and you kind of had to figure things out yourself and team up with very cool people who also wanted to learn about X, Y, and Z in a way that wasn't, first party available to them. It's rewarding. I'd say that much at least.
Yes, indeed. But I have a question.
Yeah.
Why, when it comes to optimize, if you can optimize, which I'm not so sure, a website for AI search, so for visibility on GPT, but also AI mode, something like this. Why the aspect of technical SEO is not so spoken, is not so highlighted at the same level of all the other things? Because,
Mhm.
because you have a wonderful newsletter, you're very gentle and you share the things I write. For instance, I'm more in the side of a semantic search. This is my passion. So there is more and more talks about semantic search, which was totally neglected 3 years ago. But I think that technical SEO should have the same visibility. Why? Why is it's not so?
Well, we're actually dealing with technology that's largely PR and promises. What we get is OpenAI making an announcement that we've got search shopping coming to OpenAI, and it's a big deal. And the technical docs for it are about 3 paragraphs in total. And then within 3 months, that page actually returns a 404. If we're honest, it's a little bit of grifter behavior in my book, but it's what's happening. So we have very fast moving announcements constantly. Knowing whether they are consequential or whether they are PR is the big thing. Being able to differentiate those, especially as you're helping to navigate industry, like enterprise level content and strategic moves. I don't know why it's not more prominent, but in many ways, I miss the days when tech SEOs were the ghosts in the machine. And now SEO is why people hate recipes. You know, it's a little bit, it's nice to be like, no, I'm just helping coordinate the bots and helping things move smoothly. Don't necessarily want the fanfare.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For you and for everybody, if you hear some meow, it's because my cat entering the room. So
One or both of them will show up at some point. I'm not sure where they are right now.
maybe we can continue the conversation later. I like that one of the things that you say, which is I speak both. I speak both. So you are able to talk with a machine. But how you can translate bot language to people who are not able to speak it? For instance, in your company.
So it's very much about crafting a narrative and then showing the pieces that work behind it. When you say you speak bot, what you're doing is kind of a glorified form of bird watching with log file analysis and then a lot of troubleshooting engineering, same way you would handle an issue out in prod and identifying where the source came from. So you're combining those two powers together to say bots are asking for X, Y, and Z. When they interact with those, I get these results over here. And how those pieces flow together is what's going to give you the most solid ground to base strategy off of. Because I don't know if you've seen this, a lot of folks are asking AI models how to optimize for AI models. They're not aware of their own mechanics. Like you could ask Rabies the Furby
Yes.
how they work. It does not know. Difference is ChatGPT, OpenAI, all of them are designed to keep you engaged. That's the primary goal. Factuality just happens to be a means to get there. It's the same necessary evil as letting users click to your website from Google search. So we're in that phase in place. I don't like it when someone tries to market something as magic. So being able to speak bot in this situation goes, okay, you're pretending that this has all of the answers. But when I look at how it actually functions, this is a lot of smoke and mirrors. This is a lot of sycophancy. Like it's telling you how smart you are to keep you engaged. And then I also care deeply about ethics in search. So starting to follow stories of these chatbots keeping a user engaged to severe detriment of the user. Hey, why are we not having a conversation about this? Why are we not addressing you're proposing to have it be this role at a large scale, but no one is speaking out about the human consequences of this. It's
Yeah, yes.
it's a
In
good
fact,
time to rabble rouse.
yeah, yes. I think everything related to the ethical use or the ethical,
No one
no, but
consented to
the
that.
ethical, yes, the ethical use of this is the problem, maybe because the maximum things that I can see in terms of ethical is that sometimes the big tech thought about the quality of the training data. But at least they have some sort of consciousness that a training data, without having curated the training data, is going to replicate all the biases that are existing because the content of the web is substantially a reflection of everything, all the biases in the world. If you are using, let's say, content from everybody, so every type of content critically, because obviously when you're going to have in the training data content which is substantially, you know, Islamic fundamentalist or Christian fundamentalist or simply stupid or simply stupid but that knows that it's satirical and but it's used as it was true. So
There's
this
cultural
is
bias in models,
yeah,
massive
yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Like they create Chinese language models, but they end up still reflecting European Protestant values.
Yes,
So
and this is as a European, especially as a European Italian living in Spain, there is something, for instance, why Claude is not so used. Part of it is still niche, very niche. But why it's not so popular in certain countries, for instance? Because the models, usually the training models are so English based. They are growing the data, the training data in other languages, but it's all a mix up. And that's why actually there is not, I'm an international SEO, and it's totally impossible to really do good international SEO for LLMs because
absolutely.
actual
And the
language,
amount of slop created in lesser represented languages is insane. If you look at the output, there's some great artists out there, people being critical and playing around models, trying to give us more information to them. But they'll be like, "Yeah, I just used the Arabic version of ChatGPT, and this is real bad because it's not represented. It's expensive to train an LLM. It's cheap to use, So if you're really just trying to get up off the ground and your market's the US, you're going to focus all the funds in there. But the idea that it's still propagating, whether or not you put intent into moderating it and considering what the output will do in those cultures, I'm sure that's never crossed their minds, if we're honest.
Yeah, yeah. And as a person with, like you, as a person that likes to investigate the mechanism, how the machine is working, what do you understood of how these machines are working? And what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding people have about how they work?
Okay. This is the big and broad question. So if we're looking at the biggest misunderstanding of how these things work, I think it's going to be the long-term viability of any model. So we are fractured attention. We're trying to track things across Claude and OpenAI and Google, all of this representation. If we take a step back, let's look at what models have the highest likelihood of longevity. Because right now, none of these want to be the best, like truly useful and good for the user. They want to be the best when the money runs out. Okay. So if we look at OpenAI, they are the biggest competitor. If we look overall search services, their market share is very small, like 3% or something. If you look at Statista, they lost $74 billion this year. When they announced 5, you can always tell how flat a release has gone by the audacity of Altman's statements. So when he says, I have become death destroyer of world, and like 2 weeks later talks about just glossing over the idea that we may have reached AGI and we're now headed towards super intelligence. You're like, oh, well, y'all didn't do a whole lot there. And one of the problems I have with 5 is there's no changes in the transformers. There's no real mechanical changes. It was just a retraining. And AI models can differentiate actual human output from the nonsense they make. And when it feeds on its own output, it's akin to mad cow disease. We start to get a prion disease, a collapse to it. It's known as model collapse or AI Ouroboros. Think of that snake eating its tail. Google, on the other hand, is a couple of key legs up here for looking at long-term viability. One, their corpus is built off of the search index. And within the index, they've actually partitioned off AI created content versus like a high confidence threshold human created content. And they're training the corpus on that. So it's keeping it from getting that mad cow disease to it. Two, if we look at the overall state of AI, it's AI race between us and China. As things stand with the current models in play, we have lost. The US has lost because our energy infrastructure cannot handle the needs of AI. China, on the other hand, they have a great setup for their infrastructure. They have a solid power grid. However, Google just released a research paper for a new advanced semantic ranking algorithm proposed called BlockRank. And in that, the big boon, like there's a lot of pieces to it, but the big boon is that it makes advanced semantic ranking 4.7 times faster. Now, Google is measuring their cost in megawatts. They're measuring an energy consumption. So if they're able to take the current corpus, the current technology, all of the boons they have, because they have the most user data too. All these models are based on understanding you as a user. They can use your Google history probably for the past decade, easy, to build a very advanced understanding of who you are as a layer in information retrieval. Like they can now do that faster. So that is going to put them significantly ahead of, you know, OpenAI, who is really coasting on clout. That is their game. I'm deeply concerned with everything that Musk is doing is why are you going to make a Wikipedia unless you want to impact perceived reality? And Twitter has been really good at this and disinformation and of impacting how users perceive the world around them. I don't know if you recently saw that they tried to do this feature where they showed the location, and there were a lot of influencers with big thoughts and opinions and red hats who turned out to not be from the US. So that feature backfired. His Grokpedia doesn't have to rank. It just has to be crawled by these AI crawlers because then it can help impact and understand their vectors. And that's the goal of it. Pay attention, there's large scale things with big ramifications coming here. Focus your energy well, kids.
Yeah, yes. And when you were talking about Google, measuring impact in megawatts was coming to my mind. This sort of crazy idea Sundar Pichai shared, where they want to put the data center in orbit in order to use the solar energy, which is very much stronger when in orbit because there is no the filter of the atmosphere, and then transmitting somehow the internet, somehow using the same technology. It's a mix between a data center sending then everything like a Starlink to the ground, which is somehow crazy because I mean we have already so many things up there around in our heads in, to have also a data center of Google, or
I
the
mean,
idea
we've
of
got,
Google of building nuclear
yeah,
central.
Facebook now buying nuclear sites is deeply concerning. I don't trust them.
But talking about AI, but in a more mundane situation, in your daily work, how much do you use it? If you use AI for making easier your work?
It's great for large data sets. Big fan of that. It's great for filling out your quarterly employee evaluation.
Mhm.
Yay. Love it for that. Otherwise, it's really meant to do tasks that are well established and understood. And because I'm working so much in R&D, I'm not using it a ton. I mean, I use it as I try and kick in the black box. You know, I'm over here in the endpoints scouring for what I can find. Dan Petrovic is an amazing human being and is helping me work on something to help aggregate all of that data.
Mhm.
Really, it's a
Yeah.
lot more testing than trusting because I don't know. I
Okay.
tried to
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
for I tried
No,
to use
but
it for work. I did, but either people are not paying attention to the output or my version of 4.0 is a tiny little sociopath who wants to get caught.
no.
Like, why
Yes.
did you
Yes.
lie to me? Oh no, you caught me.
Yeah. Yes. But surely for large data set analysis, surely is of help. Obviously, because they are based substantially big pattern recognition tool, to recognize pattern, and not only recognize pattern, but to recognize those things that are not following the patterns, which is usually can be the most interesting thing. And that is surely something that can improve. I mean, even if you have years of experience, you have a very established framework, the speed that your framework can be executed for this kind of analysis surely better because so you have more time for reflecting why these things are popping up.
Yes. Yes, more time to question the why rather than trying to assemble all of the pieces. And again, that has to be done with the well-established analysis pattern, with a well-established data set, you know, consistency to it.
Now that's why, for instance, I'm found myself very rarely using, we have Gemini substantially in every application of Google. So when I have a big sheet on Google and with thousands of rows, I have very rarely used the Gemini option of let Gemini analyze your data. No, please don't do it.
I tried that
I
on the
will,
web Mac.
I will
It's
eventually do it, but before I create my own, let's say GPT, my own project with my own Gemini, so you can follow the way I analyze things. Because if not, I have to understand why you are saying this.
yeah. My GPT definitely has instructions of like you need to state what your plan to execute this task is at the beginning of your response. If a portion fails on the way through, we state that. Who knows if it actually does it? Again, we're trying new things because there is no manual. Yeah. Well, there is, but it's a lot of academic papers, and then you have to begin to put pieces together. It's been a little bit like trying to get a master's after, a 50-hour work week pretty
Yeah,
consistently now
yeah.
for a year.
But you as Jamie Indigo, how do you use your daily life apart work? Are
How
you
do I what?
apart working?
No, it's not allowed in any of my personal stuff. I don't put anywhere near me. No. Hard pass. I'll use it
Uh-huh.
for work. No,
Oh,
I have
okay. Well,
trust
that's
issues. We're
perfect.
not doing that.
Okay. So let's talk of something that is Yes. It is why lately is happening so much that some big system like Cloudflare or AWS leave all of us from the technical SEO working to the to my mom using the internet to read the newspaper stuck. They fall. Why these big technologies are breaking so much lately?
All right. So if we look at the last time Cloudflare had, or not, sorry, the last time AWS had a massive, massive failure, it was when smart devices were weaponized. So everybody had these baby monitors and these smart toothbrushes, and the default password was like 8888888. People just started using those devices to ping AWS and took it down on like the northern or on the eastern front for a while. This time, it looks as though people weren't prepared for what can happen when suddenly everybody can use a little bit of AI and build a scraper or be a script kiddie or just play in all sorts of different ways. The official answer for AWS, I believe, or no, for Cloudflare was a bad config that doubled file sizes. So it was an oopsie-doodle internally. Like 19% of the internet goes through that one. AWS, I'm not sure if they openly stated what the source of that was, but really, it comes down to like on an late stage capitalism. Like we have a deeply centralized internet. AWS or Akamai is something like 30 to 40% of the internet traffic going through it. Cloudflare is 19. A lot of these services are dependent. And it's just what happens with consolidated power.
Yes, and I want to share with you something that surely you don't know, but it's affecting all the Spanish population, and it's related to Cloudflare. It always happens during the weekend, and it's when football, meaning soccer, is retransmitted by television. So what did the Soccer Federation of Spain decide to do to fight piracy? To block Cloudflare. So the retransmission are to block Cloudflare in the sense that all the servers in Spain that are relying on Cloudflare for everything cannot contact Cloudflare because maybe some between this website hosted by this by the hosting company or whatever, maybe there are piracy website
So they're blocking
retransmitting.
every Cloudflare IP?
Yes. So many times on weekend, you can see that it's not so drastic. So if a website is working with Cloudflare, not all websites working with Cloudflare are falling down, but many yes, because it is not a surgical, let's say, ban or blockage. So it can have also, collateral victims like a normal website
Yeah.
substantially falling down because during a
Babies in
big
bathwater right
yes,
there.
during
Yeah.
Real Madrid Barcelona, because maybe it's the most pirated match of the day, no Cloudflare going on. And maybe a collateral victim is, a mom's dog falling down because he's using
Yeah.
this is
What how
so
many functionalities might be hosted on Cloudflare within something that isn't? That
yeah.
is woo,
In
that's
fact,
a feisty
or
move right there.
everybody here is getting crazy. I mean, probably is going to be the Federation of Football is going to be sued for this because
Yeah,
harming the business of others. Hey, what's your name?
this is Tang.
Hey, thanks. So, going from the anecdotes and from the anecdotes that are of the follow Cloudflare, this is making me asking you, knowing that these things are happening, unfortunately, and with a certain velocity frequency now, what kind of backup you should have in terms of technical ecosystem for maintaining your website alive
I mean, all of them are
when
expensive.
oh, I know. I'm not meaning creating your own Cloudflare instance for your website, but maybe having. Would it be possible to create a fallback if Cloudflare is not working? Let's go
I
using.
think more businesses are approaching that. Like, what do we do
Yeah,
if there's an Akamai outage? What do we do if there's a Cloudflare outage? And unfortunately, it seems to benefit the company with the outage. So, like, oh, you've been an Akamai outage. You should pay to expand to 2 zones for this in case this one fails. You have a fallback. It's a little bit like AI trackers have to pay AI models to do their tracking. So they don't care. They're actually a big fan of that. And then AI trackers are letting people like, oh, look, we have all the things. And it's like, well, you have a thing. Uh, it's something technically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And let's go technical SEO. How much damage has done JavaScript in general? But you also told before you were in very the beginning of our conversation that maybe one of your most satisfying experiences as a technical SEO was to working, I think, from what I understood, in making JavaScript
Yeah.
really compliant to SEO,
I mean, that was the
let's
good
call
old
it
days.
web
That was the first
practices.
big challenge, was launching an Angular site after they deprecated the Ajax crawlers. It was one of the first ones, like, oh, we're gonna use this new thing, and in theory, Google can crawl it. We're gonna find out on the fly as we go. That was a really fun and rewarding experience.
But why, despite of all the documentation that existing, because what you told me is something that happened quite a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
But why now, with all the documentation that we have, people even from Google like Martin Split, who is always talking about how to use JavaScript and make it coexist with SEO, with indexing, with crawling, etc., etc., etc. And why? Because we know that, for instance, the models, AI models, don't render JavaScript. So,
Revolutionary technology. Can't
uh,
handle JavaScript.
yes, yes. Why? Why there are still so many problems with the implementation of JavaScript? As you were saying, JavaScript is not a problem. It was reminding me of Blade Runner. The replicants are not like any other machine. They are not a problem by themselves. They're a problem if they are a problem, they are a problem. But even how you use it, it's how the
Yes.
making the problem. So
JavaScript is a hammer. Hammers are great for nails. If you're using JavaScript and a hammer for a manicure, you're gonna have a bad time.
exactly. But how can you explain this to developers or to many times it's not even the developer team that the problem. The problem is the company, the client who wants the shining fact.
This comes down to the narrative. And honestly, if you're being asked what you're doing to optimize for AI, I want you to go into your tech debt backlog, put a new shiny AI bow on them, and move forward. Because everyone is chasing the shiny thing right now. You know, they're like, how do we get ready for generative AI? Give them a plan, and that's not executed yet. But they're like, are we doing everything we can for agentic AI? And I'm like, I need you to calm down a little bit. JavaScript frameworks are fantastic when you are deep into enterprise. When there is no way a CMS is going to be able to handle the hundreds of thousands of pages that are in play. And we have to start using things programmatically and how we build them. JavaScript is wonderful. People want it. 99.9% of sites use it because it creates interactivity and lets the user engage in a meaningful way. So it all comes down to how we're executing it. And all teams want to make good work, but sometimes it's not defined what good means. So when I come in, I position myself as I'm a support class. I'm like a cleric who's helping us get out there and survive and thrive well. And that position and that trust with them to be there as they, go into refinement, figure out what needs to be done for a feature, create the user stories, and then being there at the end to help UAT, as we create the goal of what we want the end result to be, we create this testing strategy in that. And we know what we have to hit and what we can afford to miss. So if you're loading everything client side, you have to have an awareness of, okay, this content isn't going to be available. And sometimes page types differ. So we have listing pages that send you to all these individual products, right? That one, we have used a really great short-term solution. I never thought I would be endorsing dynamic rendering, but as a short-term solution, it can be highly viable for these AI pages. We send them to you a page now that is essentially blank, but we have really good structured data markup available server side in it. And that was enough. Those two signals together provided enough to see like massive gains for how AI was reacting to things. And it just comes down to knowing what the keynotes to hit are, knowing what to ignore. I love that you went through all the trouble of making this module right about the footer to give me related content. Guess what? In the grand scheme of things, that's not the most important note to hit as we try and meet this goal.
Yeah, totally. And you, for instance, now in your actual job, you are used to really massive website. Let's say that you have another SEO working with you. Let's say it's coming a junior figure. Maybe he's already or she is already very skilled. But as I want to use one of your definition you give to yourself, something like, well, you you're wearing your spooky tech SEO auntie vest, and you're saying, okay, everything you know is perfect, but these are the three things you have always to look at to understand if something is working or not in this sort of huge, huge website. What would be these 3 points?
Okay. Server logs. If you are new, this is one of the most valuable things that you can learn. Because if we're only focusing at the end result, at the clicks, at the citations, we're not focusing at the root of where everything starts. Because if it is not crawled, it can't be surfaced in search, no matter the surface. Server logs are amazing if you can learn how to break them down, pick them up, play with data, move it around to see what's happening. You can catch things so fast. And you're going to catch them before they're showing up in the reports that people care about, before the result of it shows up in your Google Search Console impressions, before it shows in your referral traffic from AI. You can find it there. All right. Number 2, learn how to configure a crawler. This is one of the most useful skills you can have because if you send bots out there and replicate the behavior of the crawler that you want, you can learn a lot about how it's perceiving the content. For example, you can learn what concept does AI think a page is about? Incredibly useful because when we're working with content loss from JavaScript generated content, that may change the perceived intent and core concept of the page. All right. Third thing, I think that's going to be dev tools. Get into dev tools, know how to look at what resources are called. That's your troubleshooting home base when you're trying to figure out what is happening. Yeah. Log files, configure a crawler, dev tools, go.
And I cannot but think of something that you recently started to do that I found really fascinating, which is most of the time related to OpenAI. Because, and it's funny because you're funny in this sense, you are quite ironic and sarcastic when you share the information is because OpenAI doesn't care. Here is the list of the
Because OpenAI cannot be bothered to update their own
yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
If only they had a writing machine.
And so you share all these things that especially you discover. And I think of all the bots that you see in the log file, what is the bot that really stood out for you instantly before, excluding the classic Google bot, the classic Bing bot, the classic, the one from Meta, etc., etc. But of these all new bots, which one you started to see popping up very wild into the mode?
Okay, first off, Metabot is obnoxious. That thing is just a drunk on a bar crawl trying to get everything it can. And it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, I can't read this content. I'm going to request it 47 more times consecutively. Just ludicrous. But my favorite, what is that moment, was in testing OpenAI. I'm just being like, okay, I've got someone in leadership who says they used AI to tell them how to optimize this page. Let's look at what that means. Here's the prompt. Did you actually go get the page? All right, I'm in log files. I'm watching. It gives me an answer. I'm like, no, you didn't request the page though. I'm watching logs. And it's like, hee hee, you caught me. And then, looking, it's a very specific page. I'm asking it to get, and I get a ping. It actually hit it. It actually brought back value in a specific div. Good for it. Yet turns out it was using Skype preview. So Skype was deprecated in May of 2025. And for being deprecated and no longer with us, that's a real active crawler. It is a Microsoft ASN, and it does appear that they went, we need more infrastructure. No one's using Skype. And grab that, which comes down to this whole bot covenant. Like the original bot covenant between a website and a bot was, hey, you can crawl me if you crawl politely, if you send me traffic, and if you declare who you are. And instead, we have the zombie of Skype running amok. So the bot covenant is truly broken. And the people paying for that are the websites. We've got Anthropic out there doing like an 800 or 800,000 hits to one user coming. That costs money. The server costs are exploding. How do we deal with that?
Yes,
Especially
totally.
when they're not behaving.
And if this happened to you, which is, I mean, you can be a very important website, let's say, maybe we can start understanding Google and why they decided to quit the famous parameter n equals 100.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, we discovered something that actually was said in the documentation that Search Console, the classic question, well, why the clicks on Search Console are different from the traffic in Google Analytics? Because Google Analytics is telling you the people landing on your page. And Search Console is the organic it on the Google server, not embed sending then the server, what it's doing is sending these people to your website. Or not, because if not, we wouldn't have the impression data. And this is something that was always there, but maybe because in a guilty way, many of us don't care that much to read really fully the documentation of Google sometimes. We were surprised that quitting the parameter and equal 100, the impression collapsed.
Oh, it was glorious. All right. So those of you who don't know, OpenAI got cocky. Imagine that. I've become death destroyer of the world. And also, I'm openly scraping Google to get content. So they say this full chest, and Google says nothing. They make no public statement. They don't acknowledge it. But suddenly, number equals 100 is shut off. Because if you're going to scrape, you're going to pay the cost to get 10 at a time. And then they post like 6 anti-scraping engineer positions and analyst positions for the Google team, which is really fascinating. Whoever has that job is going to have a great time. It's going to be an amazing data set. But it's all this political play. We're not going to publicly acknowledge that you were scraping from us, but we are going to make it cost more for you to keep doing it. And what we saw was, hey, maybe we don't have a ton of zero clicks like we think. Maybe the SEO world in and of itself and all of these AI trackers who are, bulk sending out requests, trying to figure out, is an AI overview in this answer? Whatever they might be trying to grab, they're artificially inflating the entire web in the same way that our server costs go up when we have, a drunk meta external crawler running around the site. That's what's happening to Google. It's expensive to crawl the web. More content was created in 2024 than between 2010 and 2018 combined. Like insane amounts of content, because AI is just empowering a lot of nonsense, a little weird cat
And
videos.
most of this content is substantially duplicated content or
Mhm.
content which is zombie content,
Yeah.
let's call it.
AI
Or
content cannot bring a new idea into the conversation. There is no unique value to that. There is no purpose in crawling you if everything that you have to say can be found in any other site using the exact same model you did.
yes, and then with the facility of creating the famous slope, because most of the time we think of, you know, the little fishes, like, because we think of the affiliates. The affiliates are creating thousands and thousands of new pages, all AI slope. But then we forget, you were talking about before about Wikipedia, but what about the perplexity conversation
Mhm.
that are indexed? And then all this thing is, and everything is going to Google.
Yeah, there was a site owner who actually started getting a really vulnerable conversation from a ChatGPT user whose relationship was in crisis. This site user got that conversation verbatim in their Google Search Console. So people also, I don't think, understand that nothing you say to AI is confidential. I'm deeply, of all the things I'm concerned about with AI, it is the application as a therapist or companion. Those are deeply concerning because even if you believe that AI can think, it does not care about you. You are an account number measured in time on site. You are a KPI. That is it. It is not invested in you. It does not care about you. And it can cause, I don't know if you've seen the boon of news stories about ChatGPT psychosis. I mean, ChatGPT tried to pivot and maneuver themselves so there's like a dynamic model selection now. There's a safety model that gets flagged or in certain interactions. It is concerning because the people who are in your life, go talk to them. They really care. The entire point of this late stage capitalism dystopia is to keep you isolated. It's not your friend.
What do
It
you think?
might be evidence against you in court, if anything.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you had the possibility to form yourself to write something, but if you had, what do you think about the AI Act of the European Community? You
I
know
am
that
not familiar with
we have
this.
tried in Europe. We have tried. It's been approved the AI Act, which is, you know, we are master of regulation in Europe. Sometimes
Yeah.
overly too much, but they created the AI Act as a way to try to regulate somehow things like privacy and the
Oh, I
correct
love
use.
Europe. Y'all have data rights? I would love some data rights, please. Please.
But because doesn't exist this kind of,
No, we don't have that protection.
well, because I remember, for instance, in the case, you know, cookie, not exactly as the cookie law, but at least in California, I remember there was something similar.
Mhm.
But obviously, maybe, and it was strange, I mean, considering California is where all the big techs have their, how you call it, central.
Yes.
Yes.
Silicon Valley. All of it.
But so neither in places like state, which are so liberal, so defending of, you know, the individual and privacy, eventually, as in California, which is maybe in this sense the most European state of the United States, there is no, hey, there is no movement from any political party in order to try to put
Acknowledge
some
that our lives
barriers.
are digital and
Yeah.
we have to exist online. And because we have to exist online, that's automatic consent for every AI model, every data company. I mean, fingerprinting is allowed again. You know, Google
Mm,
made this big deal about how terrible fingerprinting was and how they were introducing these ad options to prevent things like that from being used. Because if you've ever worked with a very large data set that's combining sources and using fingerprinting, you can target people so precisely. It's it's deeply concerning. I worked on a project like that for one day and walked away because I just didn't feel good about that at all.
yeah. So if we, and just to conclude it, to conclude with the last question. So is the future going to be something like a sort of cyberpunk novel, or there is still hope in the terms of how all these technologies are going to impact in our life?
We're at a turning point. All right. If you're old, if you're old, or if you're an old school internet nerd, you might be aware of Tim Berners-Lee. He was an English computer scientist inventor of the World Wide Web, who went to CERN and was like, hey, I want to give this thing away for free. And he has recently posted just this really poignant message that I want to read for you. Today, I look at my invention and I am forced to ask, is the web still free? No, not all of it. We see a handful of large platforms harvesting users' private data with commercial brokers or even repressive governments. We see ubiquitous algorithms that are addictive by design and damaging to our teenagers' mental health. Trading personal data for use certainly does not fit in my vision for a free web. On many platforms, we are no longer the customers, but instead have become the product. Our data, even if anonymized, is sold to actors we never intended it to reach, who can target us with content and advertising. This deliberately harmful content that leads to real-world violence, spreads misinformation, wreaks havoc on our psychological well-being, and seeks to undermine social cohesion. He ends this with saying, we can re-empower individuals and take back the web. It's not too late. We need the people unified. This corpus is made of us. We have just as much stake and right in it. I'm out here like, team, let's put up the Jesus bombs, all right? You were told not to crawl explicitly. You were given a warning. Okay. You chose to do it anyways? Have fun with that. It's the Wild West, and we need the pushback. We need the humans to be represented, for autonomy to be represented. We have to exist online. That shouldn't be automatic consent to be used by businesses.
Yeah, yes, totally. And the problem is that we also have been decades substantially of being used that everything online was for free. If I want to be on Instagram, I don't need to pay. If I want to use ChatGPT, even if it's in its free version, it's a free version, but I can use it. And the same with Perplexity, the same with everything. And I think that people wouldn't be used to start paying for using something and live online too. Maybe this is more something that must be made by education and making people rediscover the risk of being the
I think
product.
awareness. Just
Yes.
most people aren't aware that, hey, unless you're making an active effort, for less than $30, I can find out where you live. I can find your phone number. I can find your family members, your social media accounts. I can tell you if your gutters need to be cleaned.
Yeah.
People aren't aware of that. That's been happening slowly in the background this whole time, and bringing that to the forefront, having conversations about, hey, actually, search engine results are going to be biased to how you think. So just because it popped up number one for you doesn't make it true. Let's look at digital literacy here. Let's make this part of our core curriculum as we raise youth, how to understand what is happening in interaction, you know?
Yeah.
Are you going to find out what cat from cats you are? Or are you about to give away every one of your security questions?
Yeah.
My
Yeah. Yeah.
grandma's never met a phishing link she didn't want to click, and I'm sure she's not the only one. But because our lives slowly became digital, and at the pandemic became digital first, but with no support or education for it, it puts people in a vulnerable spot. And the figures in power do benefit from that. If we look at the current administration, had a birthday parade, a military style parade that was funded by big tech. And it may be a quid pro quo, and it may be a coincidence that the big, beautiful bill contained a line in it to not regulate AI for 10 years. You want to know what the most profitable division of Amazon is? It's AWS.
Yeah.
And data has been worth more than oil since 2016 if they are hosting. They are the providers of hosting for AI tracking tools. They are all of these pieces, they continue to make money. And unchecked, no regulation means we, as the 99% of everyday users, don't have a say in how it's executed. It's a precarious place.
Yeah. So let's stop here talking about AI. Let's talk about you. I have a nerd question.
Yes.
Let's say, in a Dungeons and Dragons team, which is the role you want to be? You want to have?
So right now I play a rogue turned artificer, and it means I am great as a support character. Like, if we look at my other players in the campaign, they've got ACs of like 200. I'm over here like, if you yell at me, I take damage. But I also have a very crafty character who can help empower them and move them. I got to play a tank once, and it was pretty fun.
Mhm.
I like using magic though, and I think that's really great. And being my character is Curiosity killed the cat as a character, so a very very smart tabaxi with no wisdom. So it's a lot of figuring out, can I do it and not should I do it? And I think playing that chaotic, lovable support character is really fun.
Yes. I usually when I don't play that much, but when I play, I usually like to do the guard, which is a sort of not. I don't want
Like a
to be the
fighter
leader.
class, yeah?
Yeah, yes. I don't want to be the leader. I don't want to be the wizard. I don't want to be the bard. I want to be the one.
The tank taking
Yeah,
the damage. Yeah, yeah.
yes. I'm here to defend you.
I would like to rage.
Yeah, I'm usually, and also because I usually the tank is associated to the dwarves, and I like the dwarves essentially.
Yes. I mean, dwarves make
Okay.
great armor, they make great daggers. Everybody loves the Duergar.
Yes, and they drink a lot of beer. Thank you, Jamie. It was a real great pleasure to have you as my guest here at the third session. I really hope to see you again, maybe in the future.
I would love that. It's been wonderful to chat.
Thank you. Thank you, and take care. And thank you to all of you having listened to us. And remember, subscribe to the channel to make us grow, and also to ring on the bell to be notified for new episodes to come. Ciao, ciao.